Today, I'm going to do a spiritual sequel to my Cities of the Bronze Age video. However, it's going to be different. I'm going to talk about ancient cities of the pre-Columbian era. These cities may have existed at the time of European contact, but some fully existed without knowledge of Europeans, and were found as ruins. However, all of these cities existed in some fashion before 1492. Number 1, Callus, or Mound Key, Florida. I'm going to start off with the one I was always obsessed with. Mound Key, or Callus as the Spanish called it, was likely the capital of the Callus civilization, which were one of the most powerful forces in Florida at the time of Spanish colonization. The Callus built canals throughout southwest Florida, and ate primarily seafood along the coast and deer further inland. In 1566, Spanish conquistador Pedro Menendez de Aviles visited Mound Key, with reports saying they were fed fish and oysters, and that the king's house could fit 2,000 people. Disease and slave raids by the English slowly chipped at the Callus population, and by the 1760s, Mound Key was largely abandoned. Number 2, Chan Chan, Peru. Chan Chan is located near modern Trujillo in Peru. The city was established sometime around 850 by the Chimu people. It became capital of the Timor Empire and had between 40,000 and 60,000 people at its height. The Chimu built deep wells and a vast canal network to sustain this city. The city is constructed from adobe brick, being the largest mud city in the world. Around 1470, the Inca laid siege to Chan Chan, cutting off the city's water supply. In 1535, Francisco Pizarro founded Trujillo, which further put the city into the shadows. Number 3, Tikal, Guatemala. Agriculture at the Mayan site of Tikal has been dated back as far as 1000 BCE. Monumental construction first began around 4 to 300 BCE, and the first dynasty of Tikal started around 100 CE by Yax Ebzuk. Tikal was one of the largest cities of the pre-Columbian world, with the city holding up to 100,000 people and the surrounding area as high as 500,000. This is even more impressive considering the harsh jungles and swamps the city is built on. Tikal is best known for its centuries-long rivalry with the city-state of Calakmul. However, both were abandoned around 900 AD. Number 4, Teotihuacan in Mexico State, Mexico. Human occupation at the site of Teotihuacan dates back to around 600 BCE. Until around 300 BCE, the site was a series of villages. Buildings started being built around 200 BCE, and the famous Pyramid of the Sun was built around 100 CE. In 378, leader Siaj Ka'ak of Teotihuacan organized a coup d'etat in Tikal, as the Mayans called them, the Feathered Serpent people, then installed a leader more favorable of the Teotihuacanos. The city reached its zenith around 450 CE. Teotihuacano influence can be found at many other Mesoamerican sites throughout Mexico, and the city was a cultural and trade center. Teotihuacan saw population decline beginning in the 600s, and the city was either sacked or an uprising against the rulers occurred, with portions of the city being burned. The city was largely abandoned by 760. Number 5, Cahokia, Illinois. Cahokia was settled around 600 CE, and mound building at the site began around 800. Cahokia became the largest cultural center of the Mississippian culture. Around 1050, Cahokia's population bloomed. At its peak between 11 and 1200, Cahokia's population peaked at around 40,000, making it the largest city in the U.S. before the colonial era. Monk's Mound, the tallest mound in the United States, was built in the 900s, and the city was a pilgrimage site, with sites such as Woodhenge being significant. People began leaving the city in the late 1200s, however, and by 1350 the site was abandoned. Number 6, Ciudad Perdida in Colombia. Ciudad Perdida was built around 800 CE by the Tirona. The communities of the Tirona were loosely organized and connected by a series of stone paths that facilitated trade. At its height, Ciudad Perdida had between 2 and 8,000 inhabitants. When the Spanish arrived, they began enslaving coastal Tirona. The Tirona abandoned the city sometime around the 500s, and it wasn't rediscovered until the 1970s. Number 7, Tiwanaku in Bolivia. Tiwanaku was likely settled around 110 CE and steadily grew for centuries. By 800 CE, the city had between 10 and 20,000 inhabitants. Monumental architecture at the site began around 200. The city faced drastic population rise around 600, and Tiwanaku cultural influence is noted as far as Chan Chan, and colonies like Mokegor were established to bring resources to Tiwanaku. However, around 1000 to 1150, the city and empire collapsed and was abandoned. Number 8. Chaco Canyon in New Mexico. Hunter-gatherer bands inhabited Chaco Canyon for thousands of years before settlement. By around 500 CE, there were permanent settlements in the canyon. By 800, stone structures were being built, with kivas built for religious purposes. Chaco Canyon was a major cultural center for the Anasazi, or ancestral Puebloans, with the population at its height up to 5,000. Beginning in the 1100s, a series of droughts led to mass population decline. By 1250, Chaco Canyon was nearly abandoned. Number 9. Onondaga, New York. The city of Onondaga was the capital of the Iroquois Confederacy and the meeting place of the Grand Council of the Five Nations. In the 1600s, the location of the city was near Cazenovia, New York. Through the 1600s, the population of Onondaga Village peaked around 1,500. The city's location moved several times until 1720 when it reached its final location on the Onondaga Creek in modern Syracuse. Many Onondaga sided with the British during the American Revolution, prompting the Continental Army to attack the city in April of 1779, finding it abandoned and burning the estimated 50 longhouses. Today, the Iroquois Grand Council meets on the Onondaga Reservation in New York. And number 10, Kuiu in Mato Grosso, Brazil. Kuiu was likely settled around 500 CE and refers to a large archaeological complex of around 20 towns spread over a large area of rainforest that were connected with roads and canals. However, it also refers more strictly to the X11 settlement of the complex on Lagoa Dourada, directly south of the modern settlement of Kuiu. The settlements were protected by large ditches and palisade walls, and the inhabitants created black earth, or terra preta, to grow crops in an otherwise nutrient-deficient region. The settlements were abandoned after the introduction of smallpox decimated the population. It is believed the legends around Kuiu inspired British explorer Percy Fawcett to conduct his search for the lost city of Z. Fawcett likely found pottery at one of the sites, which all were similarly built. While Fawcett never found his lost city, anthropologist Michael Heckenberger happened across it while living amongst the Kuiu. Thanks for watching.